Okay, good morning. Next thing we have to do here in chapter 2 is example 3, and we'll take a look at it quickly here. Um, I told you to start here on page 42 in the PDF and read and take notes on this. Important thing here is we're learning how to do a frequency histogram. So the definition is important. It's a bar graph that represents the frequency distribution of a data set. Histogram has the following properties. Number one, the horizontal scale must be quantitative data that measures the data values. Okay. Vertical scale measures the frequency of each class. And lastly, consecutive bars must touch. So there's going to be some steps we're going to have to go through to make this happen. We're going to do example 3 right here. And example number 3 uses the same data that we did yesterday on example 1 and 2. So I've gone ahead and I've copied yesterday's work into a new spreadsheet right here. You can see it's titled Chapter 2.1, Example 3 Histogram. I'll share this spreadsheet with you afterwards. And I'll go through the steps right now on how to create a histogram from this data. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to highlight our data set. Okay. And somewhere up here in all these symbols will be a symbol for creating a chart. Mine is hidden at the moment, but here it is. It's this little, it looks like a little bar graph, literally. And that's the insert chart. So we're going to click on that. And very often, what the sheet is going to do is it's going to guess what kind of chart you want it to use. So they've chosen to do a column chart. And they do that based on the data. If you had selected 2 columns, an A and a B column, they would have looked at it most likely and said, oh, it's an XY. And they would have probably plotted, a scatter plot or something like that, which is something we will talk about at some point. So we don't want a column chart. Histogram is similar. You can see all the different types lots of different types of charts here. I highly encourage you to play around with this at some point and learn how to do all these different charts. Very useful to have these tools. So down here under other, right in the middle, it looks like another bar graph, but this is our histogram chart. So we're going to click on that. And automatically it looks more like what the textbook shows a histogram to look like for our data, but it doesn't match. Example 3, they do give you the solutions here, example 3. There's 2 different things here. If you look at the only difference between these 2 examples is that on this one, they labeled the bars on your histogram by the midpoints. And on this one over here, they labeled the bars on their histogram by the class boundaries. This is what we're going to do in Google Sheets because it's just easier to do it this way. And anytime do we want to draw these by hand? I don't think so. I think we want to utilize the technology and get the best possible result we can. So some things we're going to have to do right away. This looks better. It's not perfect. We're going to fix that. We're going to click here. There's a button for customize. All right. So right away, we want to customize our histogram. And here's this word right here, bucket size. If you remember yesterday, when I set this up yesterday, I said class width is equal to either bin or bucket size, depending on what particular program you're using. Google Sheets calls it bucket size. That's your class width. Okay, we had 7 classes. Our class width that we calculated was 56. So we want to go in there, and it gives you options, but we're going to just type in 56, hit enter, and all right, it already looks more like the example or the solution that they had. It's not quite perfect yet. There's some things we still have to do. Jump back to this. These columns at the end aren't correct. So the next thing we have to take care of here is we want to go down to our horizontal axis. We want to start. Notice this starts at 50 and ends there's 498. So these don't match up with our class boundaries. So what we want to do is we want to go to the horizontal axis. Okay. And we want to go down here and we want to put in the minimum value. We want it to be our lowest class boundary. Our lowest value was 59. So our lowest class boundary was 58.5. And we can see that's already adjusted a lot of things here. And we want our highest class value, which was 450 was the highest value. So our highest class boundary was 450.5. And right away, all right, here we go. 3, 8, 6, 5, 2, 1, 3. Does that match up with our correct example? There we go. Here it is, class boundaries. Now, some things we don't have. If you're drawing this by hand, you would want to put a broken axis in here. That broken axis is a symbol that tells us that you don't want to leave a gap from 0 to 58. That could be a pretty wide gap. And in some data sets, if your data starts in the thousands, you would not want to have a whole gap. So that symbolizes that there's more space in there than what's shown. We're not going to see that on the Google sheet. It's not going to do that for us. We need to label this. That is something we have to do. So what did this data set represent when we looked at it way back when? Data set represented the list of prices in dollars of 30 GPS systems. So we want to label that. And it's very simple to do that. Close this horizontal axis, and we can look at chart titles and axis titles. Okay, so if we want to change the chart title, we can do that. Right now it has the number 70 there. I don't know what it has there. So what was our title of this data? This data was prices for portable GPS navigators. So we'll go ahead and type that in. In dollars is a good way to put in there, in dollars of portable GPS navigators. Nowadays, everybody just uses their phone. We can do some other formatting with that. We can center it. I like to have it centered over the top. Makes it look good. We can boldface it. We can change the text color. Right now, it's kind of a gray color. I'd rather have it a little darker. There we go. So that's a very easy fix to do. That was changing the chart title. Other things we could do here, we can, this is a drop-down menu. Chart title, we want to change the horizontal axis. Okay, so what do these numbers represent? Well, they represent prices in dollars, correct? And there we go. We can see it, put prices in dollars over there. Last thing we want to do is we want to do the vertical axis title. The vertical axis, our vertical axis on a frequency histogram will always be frequency. So now you can see, now we've got frequency over here, prices in dollars of portable GPS navigators across the top, prices in dollars down here. We're starting at our lowest class boundary. We're ending at our highest class boundary. Our bar values are all correct here. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. There's lots of things you could do. We could, if we double click on the bar there, we could see, well, all right, we're talking about prices in dollars. Let's go with a nice green color for the bar. Make it look like dollar bills. There we go. So there's, you could change the background colors. You could change the grid. You could get rid of the grid lines. Spacing type. There's all kinds of different things you could do in here. So, I encourage you, if you ever have the project or something for a course that requires you to do some visual aids, you could input data into here and have Google Sheets create really nice ones for you. You could go ahead and print them full size. A lot better, more professional looking than trying to draw things by hand. So that's it. I will post this video. I will share this sheet with you as well, and work your way through example 3. That's what this is. Your assignment today is to do try it yourself 3. Tomorrow, I'm going to assign you 3 or 4 problems where you're going to need to create the entire distribution first, then create the histogram from it as well. So take the time to practice doing this today.